It's impossible to unthread your life as a writer from your life. It's all the same stuff.
There's one little lass. We call him Tappy. He's a brown un and he's not very high up. Well, he comes into the store with a rattle. And then you hear him sneeze. Hello, Taff. What's sneezing for? What does want, Taff?
What does he?
He wants a bit of back of me duckies. He does. He does.
Now, those are fine ones.
There's over £2. Isn't there over £2?
Yes. Is that all?
It's so cool. You look it on the throwing. That's it.
It's pretty.
What was it about Lawrence? Was it? I mean, you spoke before about it, something about your own upbringing, your own experience of life that you found for the first time written down in Lawrence. Was there? What was the closeness of the world that he was portraying that you found, that you understood, that drew you to it?
Working class, the world of work, familial stuff, very detailed familial stuff. I mean, I was one of 3 kids and knew the pain of not having your mother to yourself or your father to yourself and not getting on with your peers. It's impossible to unthread your life as a writer from your life. It's all the same stuff. Everything that is there is justified by the experience of living it. And even if you haven't lived it, you've, as it were, lived it on behalf of somebody else. I have lived my brother's life, 2.5 years older than me, who didn't pass the 11 plus, who didn't go to the best grammar school, the best Catholic grammar school. In part, he didn't pass the 11 plus. In part, he wasn't a Catholic. My parents brought us up in different religions. It's simply because of the looking after kids, having kids. Both of them were working. They were left. We were left with grandparents or somebody, and it was difficult to know who we were from time to time. But it all got, something went down, you know. I learnt to write quite young and to read. And I started writing not with a pencil but with a nail in the wall of the bedroom that my brother and I slept in for 12 years or 15 years or whatever it was, in this rusty iron bed. But the wall was made of distemper and something else. And I started writing little apothegms or little anythings that went onto the wall. So one of them was, we live to eat, not eat to live. I wrote that with a nail in a wall. And it was there till the house was sold. And so now, I discovered about 10 years ago that I think, was written by Thucydides. Now, I swear I'd never read Thucydides at the time, or even heard anybody say anything like that. But anyway, that's the very first thing that I wrote originally, and it wasn't original then.
You said You said Sons and Lovers you described as a reworking of Lawrence, finding in him alternative voices of which he was not aware. What does that involve?
A lot of bullshit from me, I think, more than anything. I think Lawrence was aware of most things about his writing. I don't really know what that means.
Right.
Say it again.
I'll try something different, okay? There are many answers, big and small, but one will have to suffice. This is the answer he gave to why Lawrence. He said, a powerful and radical celebration of dignity and resistance within working class culture in industrial class societies, as well as a dark, tortured cry against the waste of resources such societies require as part of their logic. It's no such bad thing to be saying in the year unemployment will reach 3 million. That's what you said in the Radio Times. You don't get that in the Radio Times anymore.
The whole of it was in the Radio Times. I mean, amazing. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think why wouldn't you want to do something by Lawrence about, a potent working class struggling to make ends meet, struggling to get to some place that was worth being before you died, which is, I think, the work of all working class people, just to be somewhere that isn't so rotten as this. And,
This period of time, okay, so that comes out in 81, and this decade of 75 to 85 is extraordinarily prolific. In the theatre, there's comedians, the Cherry Orchard, which we'll come on to, Oi for England, Deeds, Real Dreams. In television, there's Country, Bill Brand, Sons and Lovers, and then The Last Place on Earth. And then you also begin writing Reds in 1977, which is released in 1981. I mean, it's the amount of the sheer volume of high-quality writing that's going through. It's an extraordinary 10 years through that time.
but look at the smile on my agent's face.
Well, the events of last season and everything that has happened since persuade me that any belief in this particular enterprise is sadly misplaced. My record shows I'm no coward, no weakling, but when my life is put at risk by leadership as crass, as arrogant, and as irresponsible as Captain Scott displays every day we are here, I know what I must do. 10 years ago, when I was 20, I drove a team of dogs across Siberia, a journey of 2,000 miles. It taught me many things, but chiefly I learned the narrowness of the line that man walks in nature between farce and tragedy. It's a lesson those Norwegians have learned time and time again on sea and ice and mountain. It's a lesson Scott and his kind will never learn. Tell him, if you will, I would as soon agree to swim my way back to New Zealand as to consent to another season under his command. I shall take the ship in February and wash my hands of it. Tell him that a man who sits in his tent in the Antarctic and whines about the weather is unfit to lead. This thing. Where does he think he is? The Isle of Man?
I mean, I know you wanted to just talk about that long speech and about writing long speeches, which is not.
It's a characteristic of some of us. It's a hugely important speech. That it gathers a critique of Scott that has been generated from the first pages and goes on right throughout the piece. At the same time as the Norwegians are demonstrating the way to get to the pole, the way to do the task, without pretending that you're God. That's basically all that this piece says for 7 or 9 or 10 hours or whatever it is. It's basically saying, this is the true version of what happened. Now, I was brought up by my grandmother, who taught me that Scott was a hero. And Amundsen was a a man who ate the dogs. And the English do not eat dogs. Dogs are friends of English people, especially English men. And that should be recognised. So
And we've got the Falklands War going on
we've got
at this time.
Falklands War is going on at the same time. And what was this episode called?
Well, no, the final
The
episode.
final episode is called Rejoice. You'll remember Rejoice. And so I thought, well, let's have some fun with this, and we did. And the Telegraph loved it, obviously, and you know, a lot of...
I was going to say, I mean, how was it received?
Well, it was received very well by audience, I have to tell you. Most of my work is. I mean, not all of it. But I never really feel worry about an audience turning on my plays. Generally speaking,
But
they like
the
them.
establishment was
Oh, no. Well, the press.
the
you know,
press, yeah.
fake news. The press do not take well to stuff like mine. Really. I have wonderful reviews from very few. But, you know, reviews mean very little unless you're in the business. And I've never been in the business. I live outside it. For me, it's the only place to be. It's the only place that I can get some sense into my head. If I hang around down here, I say down here, I mean wherever there is production and money for it, then I can get into all kinds of trouble. So,
And I mean, before we go on to, you want to just mention Ferdy Fairfax, the director, briefly. I know that you wanted to just briefly talk about his work on it and what he brought to it.
when you look at that,
That's
Long
Bill Nighy, by the way, playing.
when you look at Bill doing that long speech, you're looking at Ferdy's work as well. I mean, Ferdy never cut a line. You know, he would ring me. New York, I was in New York doing something. He was out there on Frobisher Bay. And he would ring me and he said, I've got a line that's giving me real problems. And I'm thinking, you must have 8,000 lines that are giving you problems. Because it was such a difficult project. But he was incorrigibly at one with the production. And he brought it home. I mean, I watch that every 5 years. I'll watch the whole series. It's good stuff.
And then there was another series that you were going to do, but ended up as a single, which we won't talk about in detail, which was Country. Just what was the idea for the series? So this is the end of the series, in a sense. We've been through Brand, we've been through Sons and Lovers, we've gone through Last Place on Earth, and then Country, which was directed by Richard Eyre, ended up as a 1 hour and a half, didn't it? And you basically put everything you wanted to put in the series into the one.
Well, that's what I tried to do. I mean, we were thinking of 6, but they just squeezed us out, and it ended up with 1, maybe the best production I've ever had. A Country, remarkable.
And that's coming up in the season now.
Gigantic cast, brilliant direction, production. I don't know. I get very excited about good production. It's not that easy to achieve. And you are very definitely in the hands of others. And gratitude is necessary towards the end of a life. So, for all those directors in the room with whom I've shared a drink and a chat, thank you. Richard, of course. I mean, Richard's the first one. He comes up before anybody. I'm doing comedians before I can even take the cap off my pen. And he's always been there, you know.